Well, NAVFAC Southwest, hello, Skipper Edelson here, and thanks for joining me, Kathy Stewart, our business director. We both just got back from our NAVFAC leadership board. That's all echelons, the commanding officers and the business directors, to look at our corporate strategy, make sure we're aligned. And I was impressed with the group, Kathy, and just how much NAVFAC is doing for the Navy and the Marine Corps right now.
Yes, sir. I was as well.
The main focus of it was our Strategic Design 2.0. That's a series of initiatives, I think it's 36 of them total, that we're working across the corporation. What's nifty this time is for most of them they've been pushed out to the FACs to work. So we each have one or two. We're doing two here at NAVFAC Southwest. So you really get a field perspective, field thought on them, and we're able to make a lot more progress. And Kathy and I wanted to go through a few of them today that we think are particularly relevant to NAVFAC Southwest. And the first couple deal with money and people. And Kathy, one of them is we have not been doing it the Navy way to get either people or money. So what's happening with SMRD?
So one of the things I was really excited to hear about at the leadership board was the focus on sort of POM efforts and shore manpower requirements determinations. So like Captain Edelson mentioned, we are going to be undertaking some efforts just like the rest of the Navy, where we're going to be doing a bottom-up POM build, where we look at the field and look at what the requirements are and develop what the requirements are from the bottom up, rather than the typical RAP process that we're doing right now. So looking at what manpower we need and what resources we need to get there, and then we can make an informed decision based on the resources that we're getting to determine what requirements we have.
And it was really clear the chief was unhesitant that we were moving out on these things. People were worried about getting the money for that. And he's like, no, we have to do it. We can't defend our force. We can't defend our budget without these two things. So we, of course, had unanimous agreement after that. On the people side also, community management, a term we've used for a while, but we've got a much better solution for this now. Each of the community management plans are getting updated. Chief mentioned that he reads those top to bottom. And we have now our 3 sections that are common, right? Things that all NAVFAC employees need to do to develop their things like their speaking skills, for instance. And then each community will include a technical portion that's specific to them. And I think it's going to help through the whole training process.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. One of the things that I'm really excited about, number one, is that we are going to all have common community management plans with a technical section at the end, but also the fact that we're really going to be looking at a way to take our individual development plans, our IDPs, and finding a way where we can house them in TWIMS or some other system where we have a software way to determine what the requirements are, where we have skills gap, and what classes we need for people to continue to develop. And one of the things the chief mentioned that I'm also passionate about, since I am the business director and have total force and workforce development in my purview, is that the chief is really interested in making sure our workforce is trained. And so a lot of times with daily requirements, we are not letting people go to training, or people feel like they can't go to training, but he really is invested in making sure that we make the time for our people to go to training, that we're not sacrificing short-term gains for long-term development, that we really are focusing on training our people and really strengthening our SysCom team, which is one of the lines of effort.
Great point. And the chief's made it very clear to the commanding officers and then me to all the supervisors, we must make time to send our people to training. And I remind all of us, we also in the acquisition workforce need to get our continuous learning points done each and every year, I guess every 2 years technically. One of the specific areas that we're focused on for training is developing our knowledge of cyber and industrial control systems. So one of the initiatives Midlant's working is to get that robust training requirement for all the people, and that's the utility workers who are running the plants, to our CIO folks, to make sure that there's a clear, definitive training plan and the money behind it for industrial control systems. So that's a good one for that community. Another one along those lines is a PWD work management system. Our IT system, as you well know, have been cobbled together over the years, so there's not one way to follow everything that a PWD does from induction through completion. We use EPG, we use Maximo, we use the eProject suite. So Admiral Select Vanderlei is actually leading the press to get to one. It's going to be using our existing systems, but how do they flow from one to the other easily? NHTSA is already fairly advanced in the reprogramming to support that. So that's something that's really going to make the PWD's life easier. On the other side is our MILCON process, right? So new weapon systems are coming out faster and faster. The sense of urgency that we all need to get the MQ-25, the Triton, the JSF, the LCS, and everything else fielded quickly. So how do we compress our MILCON design process? How do we get that under 1 year and know that at the end of that year we'll have plans and specs and something we can build on? So NAVFAC Pacific has got that one for a lead. Southwest is helping greatly. We do a lot of the MILCONs here in the Pacific. So how to really shrink that down. And that's going to deliver some great value to the Navy. I have to turn my page here. On the contracting side also is the next-gen FSC facility support contract. So the MILCONs, right, get the press, but it's emptying the trash, it's cutting the grass, that sort of thing. That really what we notice every day, and it hasn't gotten a lot of attention. So Admiral Banaji has been leading this effort, and a really good coordination with the industry. Hey, industry, how should we write these BOSS contracts and FSC contracts so that they're better? And that's already started to pay off. We saw some great improvements with our El Centro contract recently. So that's something, again, unsung, but that FSC initiative is a big help.
So that ties really well into one of our other initiatives, which is expand and strengthen our network of partners. That's something that I think is really good for NAVFAC for a number of ways. A lot of times we just looked at telling our contracting community what acquisition vehicles were coming out, but really we're looking at now how can we work with industry partners to determine how they're doing things, how we can benefit, how we can do things better, but then also on the other side getting feedback from them on how we can improve our processes to make things better as well.
Yeah, that's something that Southwest has really taken the lead on. We've had big industry forums, smaller ones that are more focused. I know our environmental staff is really good at that. This year what we're doing differently is that second piece that Kathy talked about. After we award a contract, we're going to pull those contractors in and say, hey, what did you think about our contract? What should we, congratulations, you won. What would have made it better? So each of our business lines are going to do one of those. We're also working a very specific one with our tanks. So the fuel tanks that feed our ships and our planes, big part of our business, really hard to do. But industry does it also, right? Chevron, Exxon, they all have tanks. So a team out of Southeast has looked at the military model, looked at the commercial model, and for any of you working tanks, they figured out a way to slim this down significantly. So again, that speed, that urgency, get that tank back in service. And in fact, our team up in China Lake is leading one portion of that, doing some undefinitized contract mods to get the repairs on those tanks started even earlier. So China Lake, thanks for taking the lead on that one. And we got a few more here to talk about also. Material availability, not technically Southwest lead, but we're actually the one out in front. So we're switching how our blue-collar forces at our 8 bases get their material to an entirely new contracting method. In fact, well, that's one of the cool things about it. We won't even be contracting for parts. We have just an agreement with GSA, another federal entity, and then they will do all the contracting in the background. And those folks have already been out to every one of our bases, looked at the storage site, figured out what their staffing needs to be to management it on site. We fed them everything we bought over the last 3 or 4 years. So that's ramping up. And it's still a little ways away, but September of 20, we will be on that new contract. We are partially using it now. Pendleton actually has it. We've started ordering more and more from Pendleton, and it's working mighty nice right now. So a lot of us have spent time on real property inventory. We just had the audit pass through here in Southwest. Kathy, what's the tie of that into Big Navy?
Yeah, that was one of the things that really struck me at the leadership board was a lot of times we're doing these things like we're doing 100% existence and completeness, 100% E&C, and what really sometimes doesn't get communicated is why. And what I realized was, for example, we're spending hundreds and thousands of dollars to rent warehouses that house parts that we no longer need. one of the data points was that we have for F-18s, a 35% readiness rate because we don't have the right parts. So a follow-on to the real property inventory is going to be operating and maintenance supplies, OM&S inventories, where we have to make sure that we have accountability for all our materials, but the end result really is to support lethality. It really is about operational readiness.
Thanks. And again, it just ended when we're filming this, and fantastic job on the real property audit. They hit something like 23,000 facilities at all 10 of our bases, and we did really, really well. An IT push, but one for the blue collar. You know, most industries now have computers in the hands of the technicians. We aren't there yet, but we're pushing it out. So we just received our last shipment, our most recent shipment of cell phones. And we say handhelds, they're really iPhones that will go out. We'll be able to hit Maximo in the field, called Maximo Anywhere, and make the technicians a lot more efficient in the field. So that's a nice one. Talked about it for ages. It's finally happening. The last two initiatives relate to our warfighting capability. So everything else prepares us for war, but we've got two sets really led by our Warfare Center up in Port Hueneme. The first is how we can better use technology to support the warfighter. So how do we find water out in the desert? How do we use airfield damage repair technologies, not the way we used to do it when I was an ensign, and peer repair. Again, how do you get fuel off the ship and up the shore to the Marines? So XWIC is developing several new ways and really implementing several new ways to do those things. And the final portion is, hey, if we ever have to go to war, how do we push all our NAVFAC capability forward? What's our CONOPS? What's our SOPs to essentially put a FAC in Vietnam, in Australia, in the Philippines, in Laos, Cambodia, all those countries we're responsible for to do the advanced base construction. We're really good at barracks and at airfields and at piers here in the United States. How would we do that in the Pacific if ever called upon? So again, XWIC and a team at headquarters is helping out on that one. But all in all, I was impressed with the progress we were making everywhere.
Yes, sir. I agree. It was really encouraging to hear the discussions and how we're going to be using analytics to make better decisions and really make sure the time spent by our workforce is more effectively utilized. So I was really encouraged by the discussions and the initiatives as part of our strategic design.
And there's more to come. NAVFAC Southwest, thanks a lot. Kathy, thank you.
Thank you, sir.